I'm sure you've heard this perspective like me. In fact, I'm sure you might have even walked it out in your own life. We have been taught that we have to grind it out, that we've got to work hard, we've got to be diligent, and team no sleep. This whole grind mentality has thrown us into so much fatigue. I want you to know, as I have soon realized in my own life, that rest is indeed the superpower of the resilient. If you're going to go the distance and be able to accomplish the things that you really want to achieve, you are going to have to put more emphasis on taking care of you. And I will tell you, if you learn how to introduce rest into your lifestyle, you'll indeed be resilient and you will achieve in a very powerful way. Now let's get into it. For the longest time, I secretly wanted more. I often found myself shrinking to fit in, settling for what was comfortable, and even selling myself short. Once I finally accepted that we deserve success and we are blessed with the power to achieve it, I stopped playing small. I'm serious about building a life I love, and you should be too. I'm Denise Taylor of DeniseTaylor.live, and welcome to Embrace Your Power. I help women prioritize themselves, their success, and their happiness. Now let's meet this week's achiever, whose story will inspire you to embrace your power and go. Well, hello there. It's Denise Taylor here, and you know I am always excited to have you join me each and every week right here on Embrace Your Power. This is the place where you can count on me to always encourage you to build a life that you love. More than that, I believe that God has given you the power to do it. You see, in his word, he said he didn't give us fear. He gave us power. And when we embrace our power, we can be, do, have, and achieve anything that we want. Now, you know, I believe that we will be divinely inspired to go after the things that God wants to partner with us to accomplish. But when we submit and surrender ourselves to doing that, we will experience satisfaction and fulfillment that will light us up from the inside. So that's what I want for you. I want you to feel how incredible it is to partner with God to do an incredible work right here on earth. So if he's giving you something that you desire to do, I want you to lean into that. I want you to be courageous. I want you to embrace your power. Now, whether you're watching me on YouTube or maybe you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you already know Thursday is treat day. It's the day that I look forward to connecting with you right here. And so if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that now so that I'll show up in your weekly lineup and not miss a beat. I consider being connected with you a great privilege and honor. I consider being connected with you on your success journey something that is going to help accelerate you to achieve the things that you secretly desire. Now, today, I am so excited about this incredible conversation. We are going to be talking about the superpower of rest. You know, it was my friend John, who has been with us a few times, who said to me that it is the superpower of resilience. You see, one of the things that we have to be willing to do is to change our thinking. Many of us have subscribed to that team hustle, that team grind it out, that team no sleep mentality. But what I have soon learned in my own life is that rest truly is necessary. Now, you already know about the success superpowers. You know that there are 5 of them. Number 1 is see yourself successful. Number 2 is shake off fear. Number 3 is do the work. But number 4 is take care of you. And I want us to anchor around that whole notion of take care of you in today's episode. You see, many of us have relegated our self-care to tips and toes. Now, don't get me wrong, because I love a good visit to the nail salon. I love getting my nails done. I love getting my toes done. I love the experience of relaxation that it introduces. But I know that I am far more complicated, more beautifully complicated than just those exterior things being groomed. I know that I need a wellness plan that encompasses every aspect of who I am. That is why I have people in my life to really push me and energize me to be more accepting of the support that is going to help me be resilient in going the distance. You see, one of the things that's so important for us to do is to be willing to give up our own thoughts and perspectives to embrace something new. And I had to do that myself. You see, as I leaned into taking care of myself, one of the biggest revelations that came is I had to be more accepting of feedback, more accepting of guidance, more accepting of all the things that were going to fortify me to be able to go the distance to achieve the things that I know God wants to do through me. And rest has been a big part of that. Now, if you follow me on social media, then you know I recently had a phenomenal trip to Colombia. And what was really interesting to me is when I arrived in this beautiful country on the very first day, I took a day of rest. I stayed in my hotel the entire day and rested. And what I want you to know is there is a difference between rest and sleep. I wasn't asleep. I was just relaxed. I was taking a beat. I was taking time to throttle myself down into a peaceful place so that I could refuel and recharge. One of the things you get from resting is restoration. And so I want you to really think about what you need to do to introduce rest into your life more effectively. And we have a great conversation today with someone who has taken this mantle of self-care and really is creating experiences that will help you to go forward and be more effective at how you take care of you. I am so excited to have Joy join me today. And let me tell you a little bit about her before we jump into our great conversation. You see, Joy Robbins is a Henderson, North Carolina native. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Wake Forest University and worked as a change management consultant for one of the large consulting firms before obtaining a Master of Arts in Counseling from UNC Charlotte. She is currently a doctoral student in the Counselor Education and Supervision program at UNC Charlotte. For more than 15 years, Joy has owned a private practice in Union County, North Carolina, where she and her team of therapists meet the clinical needs of children, adolescents, and adults. She's a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor in the state of North Carolina, and she enjoys mentoring those in the next generation of providers. In 2022, Joy launched her newest venture, Enjoy Wellness Retreats, where she equips women with tools to be more intentional in their self-care practices. She achieved her bucket list agenda item last year by facilitating her very first wellness retreat in the Caribbean. She's been married for more than 22 years to the love of her life, Phil, and they have 2 sons, Jaden and Brendan. It was such a great conversation that I had with Joy. I want you to really open yourself to listen for the self-care strategies and techniques that you can begin to introduce in your own life, and I will see you on the other side. All right, so I will tell you, when I saw Joy's event, I had event envy because I saw so many beautiful women that were in a beautiful place that looked like they had been restored. And I saw that from the pictures. It looked like they had been restored, they had been refreshed. And I was like, what is this event and why did I not know about it? And I have to make sure that I am on the wait list so that next time I can be a part. And I don't know that people often know their superpowers, but I feel like yours is definitely in this self-care space. And I cannot wait to really discover more about how you landed here, because that's a very unique gift to be able to lead people to that. And I'll tell you what I envision in my mind. And I haven't experienced it yet, but I'll tell you what I envision. You know how when you go to church and there's a worship leader, and the worship leader's role is to be so engulfed in worship that they lead you into worship, right? Yes. And I guess what I envision from what I just saw and experienced through looking at the snapshots that were taken from your event is that you're kind of like that leader. You're that self-care leader that you were able to so effectively. Now, keep in mind, I just saw pictures, like all I saw was pictures. And I knew I have got to experience you. And so as I started to continue to think about how to inspire women to really give self-care a priority, because we have relegated it to nothing more than a trip to the nail salon, and it is far more than that. I knew I wanted to have you here to talk about it. And so I have to tell you, this is such a treat for me. It really, really is. So Joy, all of that, I want to welcome you to Embrace Your Power. I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, but that's what I envision of you. And so hopefully my spidey senses are all intact. But welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Yes, first, thank you for having me. And yes, I think you capture the essence of who I am. So yes, I am Joy Robbins. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor. All that means I'm licensed to do therapy in the state of North Carolina. I've been licensed this is my 15th year, celebrated my 15th year in December. So very well-versed in a lot of therapeutic, doing individual therapy, some couples, but working primarily with women. And it turned out that women of color were attracted to me. So the majority of my practice is women of color. And the way that I got to self-care, when I really sit and think about it, it goes all the way back to my mom. My mom would host these women's brunches the day after Christmas because she felt like people had like a letdown because Christmas, the hype around it, and then they would be sad on the 26th. She started hosting brunches to lift the spirits of women. So it's in my DNA. And I remember I had to be in elementary school. She hosted one. I made honey scrubs and honey masks for women that she was hosting. So when I think back over my life, this was always there. But what uncovered it was the pandemic. When I started really paying attention to the stories of the women that I was hearing in individual therapy and how they were burned out. And so the treatment for burnout is self-care. And so I started to infuse that into the work that I was doing on the couch. And then that landed and ended up in the brunches and the retreats that we will, definitely talk about more, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. I have to say it was phenomenal. And, I think that's one of the good things about social media is that you can see something and be intrigued by it.
Yes.
And, the brunch event just seemed like such a lovely time beyond experience. Like, I'm not talking about the plates or the food.
Right.
It really just seemed like a time like the women genuinely had a wonderful time. So tell me more about what you incorporate or include in that really brings that to life.
A whole lot of prayer. So I really believe that I'm being God-led in this, but it's the energy in the room. So we'll have 15 to 20 just powerhouse women coming together. And what's so powerful and moving, they're all sharing similar stories. So even coming from different backgrounds, they may not look the same, have different histories. It all has a common theme in there. You know what? We do a whole lot more for others than we do for ourselves. And so I, as the leader, I try to crush perfectionism, crush the guilt that a lot of us feel around doing something for ourselves, because we're good at taking care of the spouse, the children, mama and daddy. But when it comes to us, we often put ourselves on the back burner. So the energy in that room of sharing among, like I said, powerhouse women, and I'm just kind of in there leading and guiding, it's absolutely amazing. And it's more than the food, because we can go to brunch, we do that anyway, but it's the coming together and really making self-care be an intentional practice. So you'll often hear me say intentional self-care, because it can't just be happenstance. Oh, I'm gonna do this if I have time. You will never have the time if you're not intentional about it. So yeah, the brunches are phenomenal.
Oh my gosh, I can only wait.
Yes.
With bated breath, waiting to experience this time. Now, I love how you talk about intentional self-care. I love that whole perspective. But like I said, many of us, we just think that's a trip to the nail salon, and or if we're savvy, we layer in a massage. If we're
Yeah, we
savvy.
might get a massage once a month or once a quarter, right?
Exactly. But I really feel like it's more of a lifestyle. It's in your everyday choices and
Yes.
decisions. So unpack that intentionality for me.
Most definitely. So yes, it is way more than just that weekly nail appointment or weekly hair appointment. And I used to knock that real hard, so I backed off a little bit. So we do that for grooming. So we want to look good. So yes, definitely include that in your practice. But what happened during the pandemic? The salons were shut down. So if something out of our control can just erase our self-care practice, then we need something a little bit deeper. So that's where the intentional and daily self-care come into play. It's something as short as taking a walk outside, something like getting good sleep. A lot of us don't get enough sleep, and that's part of self-care. So we have to, because we expend energy every day. You go to work, or you're working at home, you're taking care of others. So that's energy being released and used. So if we wait until self-care Saturday, then we have run on E sometimes for several days, and we're waiting for this one day to replenish. So it's got to be a lifestyle where we practice it every single day. And it doesn't have to be, expensive or time consuming. Everybody can find 3 minutes. Like, we waste that scrolling on social media. You can do a 3-minute meditation and feel restored and refreshed. So really making it an intentional daily practice is what self-care has to be for us. It has to be.
One of the things, especially in our culture, right, depending on where you grew up, you hear words like meditation and you go, I don't know.
Now, wait.
I don't know about that. And I will tell you, just being very transparent, the first time I did a meditation, and it wasn't anything more than just really allowing myself to come all the way down and just sense my body, all the parts of my body. She's like, feel each finger, feel your wrist, feel your elbow. And by the time she had walked through all of my body, Joy, I was in tears. I was in literal tears.
Yes.
Because I had never really throttled down in that way. It almost frightened me because I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And so help us understand more about meditation and what it is.
So a lot of us have a misconception that meditation is paying homage to Buddha or doing something that is anti-religious. It's not that. Meditation, simply put, is slowing down enough to pay attention. So what that leader did for you was just make you pay attention to your body. So for a lot of people, I'll start off with meditation. Just sit and be aware of what you are tasting, feeling, smelling, hearing, and experiencing. So just being in the moment. For my believers, we can put affirmations that are scriptures in there. So it doesn't have to go against your faith. It is just the act of slowing down to pay attention. Because often we just go, and we don't pause hardly ever during our day. So a guided meditation or even just sitting in silence, just enough to, again, slow down, just to pay attention. And it's not, a lot of people think that meditation is about clearing the mind. We never clear our minds. We have 60,000 thoughts on average in a day. And I think many of us probably have more than that. It's just about slowing down and paying attention. It's simple.
So I will tell you this. I went on a girls' trip once, and I made the selection because I was one day listening to the Steve Harvey morning show, and he said, if you really want to go on a good vacation, you need to go to St. Kitts in Nevis, and I had never heard of it before, right? And so I was like, okay, well, if he say that's where I need to go, then let me book a trip and go. So it was me and three of my friends. We went to St. Kitts, right? If you want to slow down, this island, they do not do anything fast. Yes. And so we went to the restaurant, and they literally had a souvenir stand with the slogan, "Rush slowly." And I bought a hat because it just tickled me so, because they were like, just rush slowly. Like, we don't do anything fast. And so as you were talking, it came back to my memory that was the pace, the throttling down, to bring it down to a slower pace, a slower tempo, because they were like, we rush slowly. Yes. Exactly.
That's all it is. It's just slowing down. And it's amazing how you shared your experience, that some emotion came out of that. A lot of the emotion is there. We just didn't slow down enough to pay attention to it. So allowing that space to let it come out, that is powerful. It is powerful.
It is very powerful. So we jumped right in. I skipped right all over your business. You're a small business owner. You have been for a number of times now. You're celebrating big anniversaries, double digits. That's so huge. Congratulations to you. So tell us about creative counseling and consulting.
Yes. So that is my private practice where it's a group practice. So I have two other clinicians with me, and we do individual and couples counseling. And it worked out so well. I do adult women. I have a young lady who does children. I've aged out of that. And then I actually have a male therapist he sees males, but he also sees females as well. And he loves doing the couples work. So we are an amazing team of providing therapy for our community and beyond. So we do a lot, primarily mood disorders, which are anxiety and depression. So that's the focus for what we do. We rocked and roll for the last couple of years, been virtual, and that works for a whole lot of people. So we're doing our thing in Matthews.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love to see people who look like me and you really leaning into that space of mental wellness, because a lot of times we just kind of ignore the needs. We do not serve ourselves well in this space. But I think when someone can sit across from someone who is versed, well articulate, understands with compassion and empathy what's going on, it helps them to be able to lean into it more.
I'll say often that, we're all skilled and trained in a similar way, but it's something about that relationship that's a real big part of making therapy work. And so when you come, my practice is Black practitioners. So when you come see us, you don't have to explain what it's like to be a Black female or a Black male in America right now. We get that level. So we don't have to go through that barrier to treatment. We can just jump right in, because even though my experience is unique and yours is, I understand the common experience that we all share. So I love being able to provide services, particularly to our community. Like I said, we serve all, but we get us.
And I know what you mean, because when we were in the thick of COVID and we had a lot of unrest in terms of racial tension and all of that, it makes a difference being able to be understood from a perspective of, one of the things that I don't articulate well is I got an innate concern about my husband, right? And is he going to get home okay? And that's an underlying theme that is there. Yes, exactly.
And so you don't have to explain what that is like. So we're looking at the Tyree Nichols situation. So you might feel a little uncomfortable bringing that to the table in a white situation with a white therapist. So it is a level of comfort that is almost innate just because of that shared experience.
I think that's very, very valuable. Now, when did you know that this space was your zone of genius? How did you discover this about yourself?
So my parents were both service providers. Daddy was a cop, which that adds a whole another layer to things. And my mom was a teacher. So my brother and I, we just grew up with helping professionals in the home. We went to church. So just to help other people was always part of how we lived. I started out in change management it was then Anderson Consulting, now it's Accenture, right out of undergrad. I was miserable. I cried on Monday morning, having to get on a plane, couldn't wait to get back home on Thursday. And I knew something was missing. And when I did some deep dives and some introspection, I knew it was that service piece that I grew up with that I was missing. Mm-hmm. I left that job, went back to grad school. I love hearing people's story and how they got there. So counseling just was a natural progression for me. Mm-hmm. I get to listen to people's stories all day, every day if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And that's just so fulfilling for me. Everybody has a unique story. And if I can sit and give you space to share that and help you unwind some of the pieces that you might want to change or move around, yeah, that's powerful to me.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. I was looking through just trying to figure out what angle to take with this conversation. And I saw you post something and you alluded to it a little earlier, but I saw you post something around the importance of rest. And I think we so undervalue that. We create this perspective about going hard, going faster, team no sleep, and all of these different things that really war against what our body needs. So help me understand that value and how that really fits into our mental wellness.
So we have this connotation of rest as being lazy. So if I rest, I'm lazy. Or if I do nothing, that's a problem. Our bodies were not designed to be under considerable stress for prolonged periods of time. We're supposed to have moments of stress, but moments of reprieve and relaxation. So we've gotten that cycle all messed up, and we just go hard and we think a hustle mentality is what we're supposed to be doing. But that hustle mentality is what is causing heart attacks, strokes, increased levels of depression and anxiety. It's killing us. It is killing us. So we have to adopt a mentality that rest is essential. Rest is needed. Jesus rested. Mm-hmm. So if he took a whole day and said, I'm going to protect this for rest, we have to adopt that into our lifestyles as well. Mm-hmm. What rest does is it gives us more capacity to do more. Mm-hmm. So we learn to rest, and sleep are different. So if we learn to rest, and I'll talk about sleep too. If we learn to rest, we're actually giving ourselves the gifts of being able to do more. And that's what a whole lot of us want to be able to do while we go so hard in the pain. Mm-hmm. And we don't sleep well. We're taking medication to sleep. Our thoughts are keeping us up. And again, our bodies pay the price when we don't sleep and rest well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so very true. I have to tell you this story. I was trying to hold back, but I got to tell you this story. So I went through a period of time of caring for my mom and working full time, all during the course of COVID. And during that time frame, there were so many things that were on me. So the weight was pretty stiff and heavy. In April of last year, I could clearly hear God told me to take the rest of the year off. Now, I was used to going at 150 miles per hour. And so throttling back for me still looked like I was doing a lot for other people, but I knew I had pulled it all the way back, right? Even though I was still doing things. And so every time I would try to go, right, and I would try to get going, I just didn't feel God in it. And so I would just pipe back down, right? It wasn't until I got to the end of the year that he gave me clarity on what he instructed me to do. He told me to take the rest of the year off.
Oh, the words.
Yes, the words. And what you just said was exactly it. It didn't mean I slept the whole year, but I learned how to sit and be patient. I learned how to allow myself to just be in spaces without having to have something going 24/7, without having to have a high agenda, to put priority on myself in that season. And so it allowed me to bring the pace all the way down. And so that was the big revelation, because all year I'm like, okay, God, like, what we doing?
What we doing? What else are we doing? Resting.
Exactly. And so that distinction that you gave is pretty valuable, because many of us, to your point, either we deal with the misconception that we think it's lazy, or we deal with the misconception that we think it's sleep. And that's not what it is at all.
It is not. They're so different, and we need both. We need both.
Mm-hmm.
And in those pauses, those opportunities to rest, is letting your body just regenerate and rejuvenate itself. So both are important.
Yeah, extremely important. Yeah, it definitely was a blessing. And so I think one of the reasons, and I know at least in my case, and maybe in yours too, is we didn't see self-care modeled very well for us. I know my mom was staunchly independent. She always had things going, was always on the go, was really in that hustle mode, had lots of activities, lots of busyness. And so that's essentially what was modeled as our example. And so adopting a new paradigm is going to take us changing our minds about it.
Exactly. So we may have to adjust and say, you know what? I don't want to do what I saw. So that might have worked. And I don't know how well it worked for the generation before us. So we have to make that mental shift. Yes, that is what I saw. That is my experience. But I want to change it, because think about it. Somebody's watching us. And especially if we are mothers, and that's biological or adoptive, somebody might be watching how we practice resting, how we practice self-care. And we can be the change. We can be the generational shift. We talk about generational curses. We can be the generational blessing for the generation behind us, to teach them it's okay to rest. We're still gonna be productive. We're still gonna be productive.
One of the things I love to say, especially as women, one of the messages that I try to promote is the need to prioritize ourselves, because we're so used to making everything else and everyone else more important. And we often talk like we're important to ourselves, but when we look at our top 5, right, what are the things that we're really giving our action and attention to? We are not in those top 5s in effective ways.
No. And guilt is an emotion that often prevents us from moving ourselves from the bottom of the totem pole, even if you don't have to make it to the top, but just move yourself up a little bit. But we feel so heavy with guilt. If I do something for myself, it's taking time, money, or energy away from the family. Actually, it's a gift to the family. Because if you take that time and you go away and do something that is self-care related, it helps you be a better XYZ, all the roles that we play. So really working through that guilt, and we'll talk about that at the brunch too, so stay tuned. But working through those emotions that keep us from doing the practice of self-care and wellness, we have to change the mindset. Somebody's watching.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I try to stretch people to think about, because we haven't had it exampled, we don't really know what a self-care plan requires. And so here's the areas, and I'll see what you would add to it. I think you need some kind of plan to maintain and build yourself spiritually, physically, mentally, financially, professionally, relationally, socially. And when you start thinking of all that, I always like to say we're beautifully complicated, right? That doesn't mean we're bad. It just means we got a lot of aspects to who we are. And so I try to say, okay, think with intention. To your point, what are you doing to maintain and feed yourself spiritually? Because anything that's left unkept it is going to begin to either stagnate or erode. And so you have to have these practices in place that are building yourself up in all of these areas. Now, I don't know how that aligns with what you share, but that's one of the things that I try to work in.
So you hit all that we call them the LYs, the spiritually, the financially, the emotionally, the physically. And we want to stay in balance. So if we only paid attention to our physical health, yes, that would be good. Our bodies would be okay, but it could be at the expense of our mental health, and our emotions might be jacked up, but our bodies look good. And he wants, and we need balance in our lives. So the practice of self-care has to look across all of those different areas and doing something small in each of those areas. And that doesn't mean that you have to do that every single day, but pick something. You know what? I'm going to focus on this physical part. I'm going to get outside a couple times this week. I'm going to drink more water. From the emotional part, I'm going to journal 2 or 3 times a day. But making sure when you look over the span of time that you touched in all of those LY areas so that there's balance in your life. And it's so important.
I love that. I love that. Now, I was doing a sneak peek and I saw some reviews, and I don't know if this was from last time or another time, but there was this Gitmo acronym. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's cute. And so I will let you say what that was and how you shared it out. But I just thought it was something that was a good reminder to us.
Yes. So Gitmo, hashtag Gitmo is good enough to move on. And that is a hashtag that we speak about at the brunches, and I incorporate in my work, that crushes perfectionism. A lot of us, if we can't get it perfect, we don't want to do it. And we get stuck in this like analysis paralysis. Okay, so if I do this, and before long, you've thought yourself into just being paralyzed, and you aren't doing anything because it's not going to be perfect. So Gitmo means sometimes we strive for perfection, but if we land at excellence, that's all right too. It's good enough to move on. I use the analogy, this is a sneak peek to the brunch too, of a dartboard. So at the center of the dartboard, there's bullseye, right? And then around it, I think the numbers kind of get bigger as you go out. So we're going to always aim for the bullseye. But out of 10 tries, I'm not going to get 10 bullseye. That's perfection, and none of us can get that. But if I aim at it and I hit a 7 sometimes, or if I hit a 2 sometimes, or if I don't even hit the dartboard, if I'm aiming towards that bullseye, I'm still striving for excellence because I'm still trying to do the best that I can. But I understand I'm not going to be 10 out of 10 every time. And we got to get more. Be good.
Oh, I love that. I am telling you, I love that. When I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, that is an acronym to keep because it really allows you to stop that spiral and swirl that you can thrust yourself into and really allow yourself to relax with all this over effort that we tend to put into things, trying to get it perfect, and realize that sometimes good enough is good enough.
Good enough. And it gives us a lot more grace for ourselves. If we can allow ourselves to experience that grace, Gitmo, good enough to move on.
I love it. I love it. Now, as a therapist, give us some advice that someone should consider or factors they should consider when they're looking for a therapist. So you're sitting in that seat and you've had some people probably across from you that you knew wasn't a fit or didn't ask the right questions. So help us to understand what we should be evaluating as we're looking to partner with a therapist.
So it's a couple of things. You want someone who you have a good connection with. And so to figure out if you have that good connection, you might have to go to a couple of sessions, maybe 3 or 4, and you might find out, yes, it's a good fit. I feel heard and I feel understood. Or you might find out that you don't. And it is okay that if you've gone to a couple of sessions and it's not a good connection, first thing, it is okay to say, you know what, this is not a good fit. We as therapists, we understand that. We appreciate it if a client says that because the match is so important. You also want to think about your gender preference. You know, do you want to sit across the couch or the table from a female or a male, and really thinking about what that looks like for you? Cultural perspective. Is it important to you to have someone who comes from a culturally sensitive background similar to yours? So that's another consideration to make too. And style. So some therapists I'm not the kind of therapist going to say, okay, so tell me how that makes you feel. No, we're going to get in there. We're going to work. We're going to talk about some strategies and tips, but that's not the right kind of therapist for everyone. So some people do want that more quiet and calm therapist, and some people want a little bit more action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So really understanding what suits you best as a person and thinking about how you want to match those things up with the therapist that you choose. And it's okay to shop around. It's okay to shop around. I'll tell people, hey, ask your girlfriends, do you see a therapist? You know somebody good? Those make the best recommendations coming from someone who knows you and they've already found a good match. You can share a therapist with your friend.
So I have to say, I am enjoying this incredible conversation that Joy and I are having, really leaning into this whole perspective of taking care of ourselves more effectively is indeed going to help us go the distance. But here's something else I want to add to the conversation right now. I remember when I had the inkling within me to go for the things that I secretly wanted. And I also remember how horrible I felt when I tried to deny what I was experiencing, when I tried to deny what I wanted, when I tried to deny what I felt like God was calling me to do. I knew that I secretly wanted more, but I tried to discount it. I tried to overlook it, and it became so difficult for me to rest. It resulted in anxiety. It resulted in sleepless nights. It resulted in all of these things because I was simply refusing to partner with him, to rise up to the occasion, and to achieve the more that I know he wanted me to do. Now, I don't know if you can relate to that. If you can relate to, I have this feeling on the inside of me. I feel like I'm being called to do more, to be more, to have more, and to achieve more, yet I am refusing to lean into it. I know that it doesn't let up. I know that you're still being wooed by it, though you try to ignore it. And I also know that until you answer the question for yourself, whether or not you should pursue it and what to do with it, it will nag you. So here's my invitation. I just want to have a conversation with you and help you work through that. See what your interests are. See what you have a desire to do. See what the more is all about. And if you can relate to that, then I invite you to connect with me. Grab a time for us to just talk about it. Talk about what you're sensing, what you're feeling, what it is that you secretly want. So go to my website, www.womenwantmore.live. You will find a link there to book a time directly on my calendar where you and I can meet and talk about it. I don't want you to have any more sleepless nights, and I don't want you to struggle with what you secretly want. I want you to lean into that so that you can truly do a better job at taking care of you. All right, Joy. So I want to ask you a few questions now. Being a professional, being an entrepreneur, business owner, and therapist, you got a lot of titles going on. Being all of those things, I want to understand more about how you overcome fear and navigate limiting beliefs of your own.
Okay, so I'm gonna personalize it. Yes. So as a therapist, I am a cognitive behavioral therapist. So I believe we think, we feel, we do. We think, we feel, we do. So whenever there's fear that comes up for me, I have to sit with that and figure out, okay, what am I thinking? Like, what are the thoughts that are making me feel this level of fear and then acting in a way that's probably avoidant, because how usually behaviors show up from out of fear. And so I'll journal. I'll talk it over with my husband, talk it over with my therapist, and really get to the root of what those thoughts are. So if I can get in there and figure out, okay, I'm thinking I'm going to fail, and that's what's causing this fear to rise up, I got to go in and think about, okay, so is there another way that I could think that could be better and realistic? So, okay, yeah, I might fail, but I could succeed too. So even changing how I think can bring down some of that fear. Mm-hmm. And I often hear my mom's voice when I feel fear. She would have said, everybody else did it, so you can do it too. Mm-hmm. And so when I hear that, it kind of helps me reframe. Okay, you know what? I don't have to be fearful. Combine that with my faith, and it helps me personally to bring some of that fear down so that my behavior can follow and I can do the things, all the things that you listed. I can do the things that I want to do with less of that fear.
That's really, really good. I love those mental reminders because it's so funny. I don't think we recognize the grooming that was done in our lives growing up. Like I didn't really begin to appreciate all my grandmother isms until I got
Yes.
older.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what she was saying to me, or this is what she was sharing with me. Because as a kid, you don't get it. But then if you can hang on to them long enough, you'll get through some things in life and you'll be like, this is what my grandmother was talking about.
That's what she meant. And they can become affirmations, like the words of our ancestral people. We can use that to be motivation to change our feelings and change our behaviors. Very powerful stuff.
Absolutely. All right. What relationships have you found to be must-haves for yourself to do what you do?
My husband, God bless his soul, he rides the roller coaster with me of all the things that I want to do. So having him be supportive and be a sounding board has been a godsend for me. But outside of him, I'm very blessed to have a good group of girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll say, we're the sum of the 5 people that we're the closest to. And what does your 5 say about you? So when I look at my circle of 5, I have folks that I can laugh with, I can cry with, that call me on the carpet, Joy, you're doing too much, or Joy, you're not doing enough. So I have those people that are constantly supporting and challenging me. They don't just, say, yep, Joy, you're doing a good job. They call me on my stuff too. So I think having the husband and that group of 5, that's what keeps me going. And I encourage everybody, that support system, so important. And that's part of wellness and self-care too.
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you, one of my favorite questions that I recently heard asked in an interview is, what about you is beautiful to you? And I think sometimes we don't think about our goodness. So let me ask you that question. What about
Oh, wow,
you
I
is
love that.
beautiful to you?
I think my energy and my ability to connect with people, I think that is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm even going to put a physical in there because we are so hard on ourselves physically. I
Mm-hmm.
love my eyes. I feel like I have beautiful eyes. So that's like a physical characteristic and then a personality trait. Those are 2 that I feel like are beautiful about me.
I think that that's so powerful because, to your point, we can be so hard on ourselves. And if we could just take a couple minutes and love on aspects of who we are that we prize and value, to me, that is extremely important. And so the last one I'll ask you is this: what do you love most about what you do?
Seeing a client get it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I've been working with someone for, and therapy can be years, if I've been working with them for months or years and they get that connection, they make that aha connection and you can see it like it's almost palpable. You can feel it in the room. That's what keeps me going. That's what I love about this work. Like I said, we all come to this with a story, but if I can see that you've put the pieces together and you can make meaning out of your life and make the life that you want to live, like it's a gift and it's an honor for me to be part of that process. That's why I love therapy.
That's so beautiful. All right. So I love closing out, tapping into wisdom. We've talked about a lot, but let me just go a little bit deeper with you. What's your life wisdom? What would you tell your younger self about life if you could?
I would probably say play as hard as you work.
That's a good one.
We as children, play was our language, and somehow we got away from that and we don't play enough. So I would really say play as hard as you work. And if you keep that balance, I think life will be sweet.
I love that. I love that. Love wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about love if you could?
Mm. Find someone who both supports and challenges you.
Mm.
And I think that combination, and I've said it before about therapy, I think that's just kind of a guiding principle in my life. I want to be supported, but I also want to be challenged. So, when you see something that maybe I don't see in myself and you challenge me to do something, I think in a loving relationship that can work both from male, female. I have a husband, and then both like my children in a parenting relationship. I both support and challenge those boys of mine. So I think support and challenge.
I love that. And then finally, happiness wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about happiness if you could?
Build a house at the beach. Happiness. Be intentional to do those things that bring you happiness. And it's not about somebody else's definition of happy, but really figuring that out for yourself and then being intentional to do those things.
I love that. I love that. Lately I've been talking about the biggest regrets of dying people. And one of them is that they wish they would have made a choice to live a happier life. And, I guess for many of us, we put off so much and we don't seize the moment for our joy, for our happiness, for our fulfillment, for our satisfaction. And so I do agree with you that we need to be intentional about all of these things so that we don't have regrets, when we get to some point in life where we're only able to look back, and really reflect on what our experiences have been. This has been great. So tell me more about what's next for you and how listeners can get connected with you.
Okay. So locally, there will be more self-care brunches. I've been hosting those at the Duke Mansion, and that has worked out very well. It's beautiful. So those will be happening probably 2 or 3 times this year. There is a Caribbean retreat scheduled for June 19th, over Juneteenth weekend. That'll be in Cancun, Mexico. What's on the horizon going forward? Hopefully there'll be another international retreat before the year is over. And I like to leave that question kind of open, wherever he leads me. So I'm trying to be very intentional in my steps, career and personally. Where do you want me to go? I have these dreams and visions, but really being intentional to hear his voice. Do this or come back and maybe do a little bit more of this, but definitely pushing self-care for women. That will, I think, always be at the core of what I'm doing.
Well, congratulations on your sold out brunch. I saw that posted, and I am so excited for all that you're doing. It's an excellent intention, and thank you for being that worship leader, if you will, in this space.
Oh, yes. We worship him through our wellness. Yes.
That is so beautiful. So, I got to admit, today was a good day. This conversation, if you will embrace it, will change your life. Introducing rest into my own life, figuring out how to throttle it down to a pace that I could really keep up with and not chase after has changed the game for me. And I will tell you, I have no desire to pick the speed back up. I want to be able to continue to have marks of momentum, but I don't want to drag myself along in that journey anymore. I want to build a life that feels good to me at a pace that's just right for me. Now, I remember a few years ago when I had something happen to me. In fact, when my job was eliminated, when it knocked me off of my rocker. And when I was thinking about how to close out my conversation today, I remember what I went to in that moment. And oddly enough, it was peaceful rest. And I put together an ebook that really can help anyone who may be struggling to embrace the concept of rest. It's actually a free download tied to my other podcast, I'm the Good Thing. And so if you want this free book, you can go to imthegoodthing.com and download the ebook. But here's what it covers. During the course of that recovery, after I had that blow, and I went into this state of peaceful rest, I marked every day with a perspective that helped me to get back in the game. It was a series of R's, as I look at it now, that all feed into the context of rest. The first day was the day of regroup. The second day was the day of reflect. The third day was the day of relax. The fourth day was the day of refuel. The fifth day was the day of restore. The sixth day was the day of refresh. And finally, the last day, the seventh day, was the day of recommit. Creating that pattern for myself was an opportunity for me to lean into how to restore what I feel like was lost in that moment. And so if you're struggling, trying to wrap your head around how do I embrace rest in my life, I invite you to go to imthegoodthing.com and get the free ebook. In that ebook, I walk through how to handle each of those perspectives. And now as I look back, it was a strategic opportunity to take myself through a rest plan. I want you to know that you can begin to take care of yourself in a great way. It's actually necessary for you to go the distance. I often talk about how taking care of ourselves sets us up for the mantle of greatness that we have been called to carry. It will take us out if we don't create the diligence to embrace rest in our life. I'll look forward to seeing you next time, and thank you for tuning in today. Well, that's it, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Don't ever forget that you are truly blessed with life, love, and all the happiness your heart can hold. Be relentless in building a life you love without apology. I'm Denise Taylor, and you can always find me in our free Facebook community. It's Embrace Your Power, easy to find. Now be sure to rate and review this podcast and share it with a friend. And make sure you subscribe so that we can stay connected each week. And remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear. He gave us power. So be sure to always embrace your power and go.